I'm Robbie Boundy, founder of Space Impulse.
Hi, my name is Eldrige van der Veen. I'm head of strategy and managing director for OHB Venture Capital.
I'm Ken Eppens, founder and CEO of Orbit Guardians.
And I listen to the Cold Start Project.
And I listen to the Cold Start Project.
And I listen to the Cold Start Project.
For me, specifically from my team, a typical problem there would be if an equipment is not really working as it should. I would say one of the days that I was really worried was we had a problem with the antenna, and since we only had one antenna, so we had to get it fixed quite fast. But we, like I said before, we lost one satellite, and this is a very stressful moment. When it happened, you don't want it to happen. Nobody wants it to happen, but you learn a lot. This is the moment you learn most.
Welcome back to the Cold Start Project, the podcast about the unexpected challenges of scaling space companies. And I'm here with Eldrige de Melo. He's from Angola, and he is, right now he's in, I think, the Toulouse, France area. Welcome.
Yeah.
He's an expert on ground station operations. So I was super excited to get him on because about 4 or 5 months ago, I woke up one day and realized I don't know anything about that particular topic, and I really should. So we're going to fill in a lot of gaps here, and hopefully this will be quite an educational and entertaining show. So let's begin, I guess, with a very straightforward question. It's one that you added to our Google Doc that I use in prep for these. What kind of, I guess, profile, look and feel training does a ground station employee or specialist need?
Well, mostly, from my experience, you run into a lot of people with telecommunications background and mechanical engineering. So usually in a ground station, you will have a bunch of guys with different profiles, telecommunication, a mechanical engineer, IT as well, and aerospace engineering. So the training, after certain people are selected to be part of a ground station crew, they go through an extensive training program. Most of the people from experience, they know nothing about satellite by the time they are selected. So you go to an extensive training, learning the architecture of a satellite, how is it divided, you have the platform, you have the payload, the different types of missions, the different types of payloads that you would need. And after that, you are specialized. So your training is more focused on what type of activity you'll be doing. For example, the type of activities that I do as a ground station specialist only involves telecommunication, making sure that we can track the satellites, controlling and monitoring the antennas, all the radio frequency equipments involved in sending commands to the satellite and receiving telemetry.
Okay, and you're getting a master's degree in something right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm getting a master's degree in aerospace project management, which is pretty cool. I have a very strong technical background, so adding this master's degree into my skill set is very important because I get to understand a lot of decisions that are made. I'm an executing guy, so I get my orders and I do it. So with this master's, I get to understand how people make the decisions that we have to execute. Pretty cool master's because I get to meet a lot of experts in the industry. Mostly since I'm in France, I get to meet a lot of experts from Airbus Defense and Space, the CNES, which is the French space agency, and mostly all the French people in the French space sector. So it's very cool.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll have to ask you to connect me up with some later.
Oh, sure.
There might be some good connections there because I certainly have not met everybody, despite trying.
I'm sure, yeah.
Right. Well, we started answering this question a little bit in your response to the first question, but I want to take a step back out to the big picture view and ask, what do we mean by the term ground stations? What's it all about?
Well, you have to understand that a ground station is part of a ground segment. So in a ground segment, you have the ground stations and you have the control centers and the mission centers, so the mission control centers. Well, the ground stations basically they're just facilities which the main functionality is for communication for the satellite, uplinking data and downlinking data. So sometimes ground stations they will also act as control centers, but most of the times no, they just really act as a relay station so that they can send the data back to the mission control center. Because you imagine if you have a mission, interplanetary mission, for example, and you're out of your antennas on the mission control center, you have no communication with the satellite, so you need a ground station somewhere else on Earth that has a link with this spacecraft or the mission that you're performing.
Okay, and so you need to keep communicating with it. Now you've got a term in here, or a couple actually, flight director and shift flight director.
Oh yeah.
Let's just talk
Yeah.
about those two things. How do they fit in?
Okay. You have to understand the structure of a ground station team or a mission control team. So this is how it works. You have 4 teams. The first team, not really the first, but this is it's the team where I have experience working in, is the ground station team, where we basically, like I said, we take care of all the communication. We monitor the antennas and control them. Then you have the planning team. These guys, they are responsible for making a detailed plan of everything that is done in the mission control center. So you have daily plan, you have weekly plan, monthly plan, and yearly plan. Everything that is done in the mission control center is planned. So there's no, you can be a very smart guy, but you're not really, most of the times, you're not really thinking out of the box. You have to follow a procedure. After that, you have the IT guys. So these guys are responsible for the servers and all the computers. And then you have the flight dynamic guys. These guys, we call them the ballistic guys. They're the guys that are responsible for determining where exactly on orbit the satellite is. So they do a bunch of calculations. And then on top of that, you have the shift flight directors. So the shift flight directors, they act as a deputy to the flight director, because the flight director does not work shifts. So the flight director is the maximum authority inside the mission control center, and he does not work shifts. So usually they work normal working hours, and the shift flight directors, they replace him during the shifts. So for example, 12-hour shifts, they're always there.
Okay, so that gives us an idea of how the human resources are laid out and the organizational structure.
Yeah.
Now, you work for an organization in Angola. Tell us about that.
Well, I work for the Angolan space program. The Angolan space program is responsible for developing the space program of Angola. We recently, not so recently, but 2 years ago, we launched a satellite, a telecommunication satellite that was built by the Russians. And unfortunately, we had a huge failure in orbit. Currently, we are building a second satellite with the Russians for telecommunications. And we have a third one with the French for Earth observation. So the Angolan space program has been developing our space program for the past 10 years now, and developing ground stations, building mission control centers, training specialists. We are over 70 specialists right now, all trained, certified by the Russian Space Agency. And we also have education and outreach programs, because it's really important for us to educate the population on why you need to have a space program. Imagine in Africa, we have so many problems and then conditions. So you really need a strong outreach program to be able to make the population understand, because most people, they don't get it and they don't understand. I mean, not even in Africa. If you go to even developed countries, people will still debate. You can even see the case of the United States. If you look at how much NASA has as a budget compared to other sectors, is very reduced. So it's really important to make people understand, why do we go to space? Okay, we go to space because we have so many problems, which we can actually address them through space technology. For example, in my country, our territory is so vast, it would take us many years and a lot of money to be able to build telecommunication infrastructures. So it's much simpler for us to just send satellite to space and be able to have communication all over the country, even in the remote areas. And for the Earth observation satellite, we can use it to monitor our borders because of illegal immigration, monitor for illegal fishing, our forests, and so many applications. One of the most important for us right now would be for agriculture, because we are an economy that depends highly on oil. And with the current state of the market, it's very important for us to start investing on other different sectors. And agriculture is one of the sectors that we really want to start investing. And with a satellite, it's going to make things so much easier.
Right. Well, I don't need to be convinced. But yes, the monitoring, the communications, the search and rescue stuff, all the things. Do you like your GPS? All these things that I think a lot of people take for granted or really don't understand where it comes from. Are covered in that. So let's dig into the guts of how ground stations operate. You've got your antenna, radio frequencies, some signal comes in. What happens?
Well, okay. The way that the ground stations operates, you have the antenna. So, for example, like I said, you have the daily mission plan, and on the daily mission plan, you know exactly at what time commands will be sent to the satellite to do some type of maneuver, housekeeping, to switch off or turn on a certain equipment. And so on the ground station, we know at what time this will be done. And our job is to make sure, my team, the ground team, is to make sure that all the equipments, radio frequency equipments, are ready for that. When you're sending commands on your uplink, so the signal comes out of a modem and it goes into an up converter. So you have a frequency translation, and after that it goes to a power amplifier, because you really need to amplify your power to be able to reach in a geo satellite 36,000 kilometers. And and on the way back, you need a low noise amplifier, LNA. And after that, you need a down converter again. And then the signal goes back into the modem. And then the signal goes to the guys who will be analyzing the spacecraft data. My team, for example, the type of information that goes through, I have no access. It's of no interest to me, because my task is really just to make sure that communication is flowing when it has to flow. And you have the mission analysis guys, and these guys they understand better the different subsystems of the satellite. They understand better the thermal conditions that the satellite has to be, the power that the satellite has. So these guys, they'll be analyzing the data more deeply.
Okay. So really in your role right now, you're looking at the communication like kind of a pipe, whether it's open and flowing or not. You don't care about the water inside so much.
Exactly. That's exactly the word. We control the pipe, basically. So we control the pipe, and you have all types of information coming in and going out. We don't care. All we care is to make sure that the pipe is working properly. All the equipments in the pipe are working properly, and the guys who deal with the data, they deal with it.
Okay. Is that enforced through like security restrictions, or just like, well, this is your role and that's your operationally defined job?
Well, yeah, there's security restrictions. For example, in the room where I work, no unauthorized guys are allowed to, except for the flight director and the chief flight director. So the guys working on other teams, they have no access to my room, and I also have no access to the rooms where they work. And in terms of the information, so like I told you, when the information is received through the downlink transmission line, So you have the LNA, you have the DOM converter, then it goes into a modem, and there's also a bunch of security protocols in there before the guys that have to analyze it get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That encryption makes a lot of sense there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear. I mean, obviously, I don't want to hear about confidential information or anything like that, but I am curious what a typical problem day looks like for the Angolan Space Program Management Office. What kind of things get your attention?
Well, for me, specifically from my team, a typical problem day would be if an equipment is not really working as it should.
Hmm.
On our workstations, we can analyze the status of an equipment. It's actually quite simple. You have very interactive types of software. So if it's working properly, it's green. If there's a minor error, it's yellow. If it's bad, it's red. So if it's red, it's really critical. But most of the equipments, they have redundancy. So you have a backup in case there's always backup. Everything related to space is always important. You have backup on ground and background on the satellite in space. So a typical problem day for me is not that problematic because usually I just have to switch an equipment and that's it. I would say one of the days that I was really worried was we had a problem with the antenna, and since we only had one antenna, so we had to get it fixed quite fast. But we, like I said before, we lost one satellite,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a very stressful moment. And when it happened, you don't want it to happen. Nobody
Right.
wants it to happen, but you learn a lot. This is the moment you learn most because when you launch a satellite, most of the malfunctions that are expected to happen, they are planned, and you have it on the operational manual. So if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. It's all it's a sequence for you to take care of things. So the type of anomaly that we had, it was not planned. So it was usually in these types of situations, you have to assemble a team of specialists to try to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't deal with the situation, then you have to hand over to the manufacturer, to the guys who actually built the subsystems, because they understand better the spacecraft than us, than the operators. We have a little back and forth with change of information until, if it's too bad, it will get to a point where you become useless because you can do nothing. The manufacturers, they have to take care of the situation and they have to troubleshoot. Mm-hmm. It's a very stressful moment, but you really learn a lot. You learn how to deal with these types of nominal situations.
Hey, this is Jason Kanigan from Cold Start Tech. Thanks for listening in. I'm going to quickly interrupt the interview to talk about a new course I am offering for space startup founders. If you're a space startup founder and eventually you're looking at getting invested in, getting some of that good old venture capital pouring into the system, then you're going to need this, because I have done tons of one-on-one calls with space founders and discovered several consistent things that are just plain missing from their businesses. And these things are so important that every time a VC looks at your pitch, they're going to say, nope, no thanks, bye-bye. And so if you want to avoid that problem from happening and actually get to the promised land of being funded, then sign up. All you have to do is go to this address and drop in your email and sign up for it. It's coldstartech.com/SBM. That is for info about the course, and the first part of it will be given to you as it comes out. So go check that out. Do it now before you forget if you're a space founder. And now let's get back to the interview. What do you feel about it feels like a little lack of improvisational ability when you're forced to go to the operations manual and go, well, the procedure's written down on this page. And like, documenting procedures is a major part of what we do at Cold Start Tech, right? And process improvement. So I can't say I hate the idea, but on the other hand, I can see where it limits you creatively. What do you think about where's the boundary on that? And how does it affect diagnosis in these emergency situations?
Well, I understand that it's necessary. because I mean, you have a satellite that costs over $100 million,
Mhm.
and you need to make sure that nobody's having funny ideas or experimenting. So you need this guy, you need these operational procedures. But on the other hand, I feel that if you are somebody with a very creative mind, it's a type of work that you will eventually be bored, because you don't think outside of the box.
Hmm.
You just follow procedures all the time, and even before you follow procedures, you have to inform. So before I do anything, I have to call the chief flight director, inform him of the situation, advise them on the situation, and ask permission to follow a procedure
Hmm.
that is on the book. So it's to me, it's a very boring job. It's exciting, the learning part. It's very exciting. Yes, it's cool. I mean, everybody wants to get into the space sector and learn, and that's why your podcast is so important. Making space boring, because before you really understand, it's so complex in your head. You know, when people think about space and satellites, they think that it's way too complex. It is complex, but it's very simple to understand if we just use a different language. That's why, for me, honestly, it's a bit of a boring job. I've worked on shifts, and most of the time nothing goes wrong. So
Yeah.
you are waiting for something to go wrong just to be in action.
Right.
And
Right.
but on the same time, you don't want anything to go wrong, and that's the
Right.
funny
Yeah,
part of it.
because I imagine you don't have very long to fix things when something starts going wrong. It's probably different every time, actually.
Yeah.
That I think
It
about
depends on
what the
what team
fault
you
is.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on what the fault is, if it's critical or not. But most of the satellites now, they can also go on safe mode.
Hmm.
So it gives you over 24 hours to figure things out. So you do, it's stressful, but you do get some time to figure things out.
Yeah, as long as it's not attitude control.
Oh yeah,
I think that might make it bad if it
Yeah,
starts spinning away somewhere. But yeah,
yeah,
if the satellite stays where it's supposed
yeah,
to,
yeah.
just shuts down. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're all right.
you're actually right. This
Yeah.
is the example that I gave is mostly
Yeah.
for geo satellites,
Hmm.
because they fix on the same position, and you can, like, you have the permanent link with them unless
Right.
something really goes wrong. But on the Earth observation satellites, where you lose communication with them from time to time, it's really more complex.
Okay. Is there any part about speaking of attitude control, trajectories, and that? Is there any part of your role that has anything to do with collision prevention?
No, not on my role,
Okay.
because I'm working on the pipeline.
Hmm. Right.
We have the guys, the flight dynamic guys, and
Hmm. Right.
they do work on collision prevention.
Okay.
It's a very beautiful job, and very important as well. So we also do a lot of simulations before anything is done,
Okay.
just to make sure that we can avoid any type of collision. Before we send commands to the spacecraft, we perform a simulation to see how it's going to perform, and then we do it.
Okay. How did you get into the Angolan space program?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So a bit of my background. So I have a background on information system. I had not dreamed ever that I would have this opportunity. So I've worked in different companies. When there was a call out for people to join the Angolan space program, and I signed up. I went through the tests, and I got in, and it was a great moment.
Huh. Yeah, I can imagine so. Now, had you gone to France before that for education, or had you gotten that all in Angola?
No, okay. My education is mixed. It's in Angola and Namibia.
Okay.
Namibia is like, it's a neighboring country to Angola. My education was mixed, and after I finished my university, I went back to Angola, and I think after a year, I joined the Angolan space program.
Okay, very, very cool. Let's see. Now, you wanted to talk about the impact of autonomous satellites on ground operators. And I'm beginning to see, like, okay, yes, you're part operator, part fireman / field service tech, but in a very limited way, right? With these operational procedures where you don't have a lot of autonomy or independence on how you're going to solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. These autonomous satellites, I guess, there's more and more of them coming. What do you think the impact is going to be?
I think the impact is going to be huge. I think a lot of specialists will not be doing the job that they're doing right now. It's a hard thing to talk about it. Most people don't want it. Most people on my position, they don't want to talk about it, but I think it's a reality. Operations is it costs a lot. And as usual, in business, we want to cut down costs. First of all, we want to make a profit. And with autonomous satellites, we can cut down on operational costs by having reduced crews. So some tasks that we perform on Earth, satellites will be able to perform them with the implementation of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of studies that are being done and a lot of technology that is being developed, which I'm not an expert on what really type of satellites we are going to have 20 years from now. But if I had to guess, I think that we would have satellites that communicate with each other, relay information between each other, and we would really have like a reduced crew. For example, during my first year of training for the Angolan space program, I had the opportunity to train with an ex-officer from the American Air Force, and he told me that when he was younger, he was able to do the job of 3 specialists. So imagine we're talking about 20 years ago, and they didn't have the type of technology on satellites that we have right now, or that we are going to have 10, 15 years from now. So there will be, in my opinion, there will be a huge impact on the number of crew, the number of people that you need to be working on the ground stations.
Okay. You've got me thinking about the cost of operating a ground station relative to the cost of the satellites that they're monitoring. And this is an accounting thing, you know, I don't expect you to have these numbers at your fingertips because we didn't on this part, but you know, it just really makes me wonder, because you've got one ground crew can monitor many satellites. Facility obviously has a cost, a hard cost, right? And then you as labor have a cost, and the ground station does have an ongoing cost for maintenance and repair and things like that. But I'm curious about like what proportion that is of the total cost of the satellites that it's monitoring, because if it's a fraction, like a tiny fraction of it, because like for $1 million a year or $2 million a year, you can get 20 people, right? You know, you could can do it. You do need the box to put them in with all the stuff, the equipment, and that's going to cost also probably you know, $100 million or something. I have no idea, but if it's a tiny fraction, it's like, well, why not keep some labor around? But if the satellite is making decisions on its own, Cold Star is a data science company as well. We've got a really good data science and machine learning division, especially with optical pattern recognition. That's a thing we're really good at, because our chief data scientist comes from the fraud prevention world and detection world. It just makes me wonder, right? If, you know, it's like, okay, I think the big takeaway is that what if there are ground station operators in 20 years or whatever, they'll probably be doing different things than they are today.
Exactly. That's the thing with machine learning and artificial intelligence. I mean, people will lose jobs, but there'll be new opportunities. But we just need to be ready. I mean, this involves management right now needs to be looking at that. Okay, we have these people with us right now. What are they going to be doing 20 years from now? The cost of operation is not really a fraction. It's actually extremely high. It's if you say, I don't have the numbers right now, but it's really high, the cost for operations. and definitely it's of interest for companies to be reducing on the cost. You
Mhm.
will have not only automation on satellites, but also on ground. The workstations, they will be able to perform the tasks that we do. For example, if I have to monitor the state of health of an equipment to
Yeah.
see to monitor if it's green, yellow, or red. I mean, even right now, you already have softwares that can do that and notify
Mhm.
a human to
Right.
come change an equipment because these events happen from 5 to 5 years. So, do you really need to have a human sitting waiting for something
Mhm.
to go wrong 5 years from
Right.
now? I mean,
Right.
it's the trade-off. So, my opinion is that management they should be looking okay. What could these people be doing 5, 10 years from now
Mm.
when we start implementing more automation? Because it's not even going to be a matter of choice because you have suppliers of your equipment. At some point, your suppliers will no longer be selling equipments that don't have that type of automation.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Is the Angolan government running the space program, or have they contracted it out to private industry for the most part, or is it like a total
No,
mix?
no, it's fully run by the Angolan government.
Hmm.
So it gives us a lot of flexibility
Yeah.
in terms of the projects that we are implementing right now.
Okay. I like this idea of the leadership taking responsibility for the fate of its citizens, you know, or working for this program and thinking ahead. And it's self-serving as well in a good way
Yeah.
because they're going to develop people with the right skill sets and not be stuck with a bunch of folks sitting around who have an
Yeah.
outdated skill set, right?
Yeah. Well, if you look at it this way, it's really hard for private companies to get into the space sector, first of
Mm.
all, and to invest. So usually it asks for a country to start developing space technology using space data. It has the government has to give the first kick to put the money on the table
Mm.
first before you start having small companies getting the interest and all that. So it's very important for you to have the government involved first. If you look at all the other countries, that's how it's been. I mean, there was no new space
Mm.
before. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, capital investiture and capability development is it's hard to do with
yeah,
small firms right now
yeah, yeah.
for space. Is there a technology or a problem-solving system that maybe doesn't exist right now that you believe would really help ground station operators?
Well, for ground station operators, um, if I wouldn't say that it will really help them, but we'll go back to the automation. It's what I really believe. It would help management.
Hmm.
It would help management to just be more effective, more efficient, and more cost friendly. If
Okay.
we're more automation implemented on the workstations.
Yeah. And what will the automation help the flight directors do, let's say?
Well, for example, you can have a system that will notify the flight director if something goes wrong. Um, you can just, I imagine that there should be already people developing systems like this where you notify whoever has to take decision. So instead of you having 10 guys spending the night in the ground station, you just have automation all over it. You have machine learning, you have
Hmm.
artificial intelligence, and they can do this job much better and more efficiently.
Okay. Yeah. And it kind of feels like the doctors that can cover a large hospital or multiple hospitals. And maybe
Yeah,
they've got a robot going around and
yeah,
it talks to the patients and then determines when actual human MD is needed. Okay.
yeah.
Now we've got organizations like the International Telecommunications Union and those WRC conferences, and I'm curious about how close attention you pay to those frequency allocations and the activities of those kinds of organizations.
Well, it's very important to have a link with this or the ITU, because before you launch a satellite, you need to have an orbital position and you need a frequency allocation. And these resources, they are not unlimited. So there's a filing process that you have to do you have to anticipate this process. You can't just file for them when you're already building a satellite. Usually we have a team of experts in telecommunications. They take care of this. And I'm sure that every country has a national institution that also deals with this on a national level. And they also advise and make part of the team that goes into the ITU and files for this orbital position and the frequency allocation.
Okay. What kind of role are you aiming for when you're done with your master's degree?
When I'm done for my master's degree, I'm aiming for a more management type of role in development of space technology, nano satellites, because that's the future. We will have smaller satellites than we have right now. I mean, they are way too expensive. And with new space, the trend is to make things smaller and more accessible. So I see myself developing nano satellites and technology associated to the new space.
Okay. Where do you think you will do that? Is it with ESA or the Angolan government, or you're gonna hop over and join the American Space Development Agency somehow? How do you think you'll do that?
I have to do this with the Angolan government because I have to go back to Angola and support the development of the Angolan space program. But obviously, in the space sector, collaboration is the most important thing. You
Very
have
cool.
to collaborate. So yes, you have to collaborate with ESA, NASA. Right now, we are collaborating with the Russians. We are collaborating with the French government. We need to collaborate with the Chinese as well. I think the Chinese, they are doing amazing things when it comes into space technology. They are developing rockets, and they have a lot of technology related to space. And there's also India. They are also amazing. If you look for the past 50 years, what they have done, it's amazing. They've had a few failures, but they just have to keep pushing.
Yeah, they keep launching. All right. Well, I really loved having you as a guest. It has been super educational. I'm sure there are like 15 listeners out there who are experts on ground station operators that have run major facilities who are tearing their hair out and being bald like us by the questions that I've asked. I've really enjoyed it. My guest has been Eldrige de Melo. How can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's the easiest way to get a hold of me. So just look for me, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody I like communicating. And thanks a lot for having me on your show. I'm a big fan, and I've had a lot of fun talking to you. And I hope we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks a lot. Hey, this is Jason Kanigan, the host of the program. Thanks a lot for listening to the Cold Star Project. If you want me to send you new episodes of the Cold Star Project so that you don't have to go hunting around for them or watching YouTube or anything like that, go to this page, coldstartech.com/MSB. That's short for Make Space Boring, which is what we're all about. And drop in your email address there, and I will be able to do that for you. Make Space Boring is another little show that I run. It's a shorter format, quick interviews, and news of the day, and sometimes an update of who I'm meeting and what I'm learning in the space field. It's on the same Cold Star Tech channel. Speaking of which, on the YouTube channel, I can do something I cannot do on the audio-only version, which is add playlists. And so there may be topic area playlists on the YouTube channel that you would be interested in digging into and going down the rabbit hole and learning more about. For example, space law and policy, space situational awareness, lunar mining and construction and fun stuff like that. So go check that out. That is at coldstartech.com/play. That's the short link to get there. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon.